bit and up a little higher.
Get those fish out there.
Get them up there. Those are
There you
nice.
go.
All right.
All right, look.
Tawas outing 2001. Nice fish in there. Those are good size. How big do they go, John?
I don't know. They're probably, a couple of them are probably 7s.
Okay.
You must eat some of them chili dogs.
Hey, Teddy, you and Keith go and get the one that's out of my boat and get a picture.
Got him.
Already?
Yep.
Speak to me, sweet book.
I get better than that.
Sounds pretty
Yep.
good though.
Paul's is bigger than yours. Ha ha. No. I wouldn't do it.
Can't you hold up both ends there, Ted? Those are nice.
There you go.
Well, that one on the end is like really fat. Well,
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
the last two on the end are really fat
These
across the
things
back.
are tasty.
Those are nice. Look at the size of those. Nice catch. Tawas Bay, right? What kind of depth?
About 14.
14 feet.
Can I put mine on there with it, John? Get a picture with you?
Yeah.
Huh?
Grab them.
There's a couple there.
Hold them up, hold them up, hold them up.
Paul's got a nice one.
Yeah.
Oh, nice fish, Paul.
You only caught one, but
What was on that?
Somebody said maybe a salmon got it.
Limburger. Don't smile.
I never do.
Paul always smiles when he gets some, and he's very often.
Oh, here we go again.
He needs a shower anyway.
Sun's here. You need to be over here. Y'all need to be over here with the sun.
You guys gotta get over by the front of my truck.
Here. Stand up over there.
Need to be this way into the sun, really. You're gonna have.
Well, that's nice.
That's a nice mess of fish.
Dave, whatever you see in that camera is what the picture is.
Okay. Oh my God.
Look down, you're covering your face.
Hey Don, could you snap a picture with my camera there?
Which one is yours?
It's laying on the ground right there. It should be on.
Cool.
Chase, why don't you talk John into doing some kind of talk or getting something going now instead of waiting till John gets back, because we're all going to be in bed by midnight.
I think you'll be in bed before then.
We can always have a talk at breakfast before everybody leaves. That you got more people there now. It's actually a better time.
Hey, that's a big one. How big does that go?
King or
Man, what a small
15. That's enough.
Where'd you get it?
Thunder Bay right in the harbor.
Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beside the
Where'd you get them?
100 spoon plug. Boy, that was a nice little fight.
Oh, I bet.
He hit hard and took out a lot of line.
You probably knew what you hit once you started started screaming.
He about killed a duck.
Shit.
When he ran, he was running up along the surface and there was a duck there and he just about hit the duck. The duck about had a heart attack.
Stick your tongue out like you did to me.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
On what they're doing. Me and Marcy today. Here's the bay. This is all 5 foot. Down here, there's a red roof house. It's a red tiled roof. Sits back in the woods. Straight out from that, there's a reef. It ain't the big reef. The big reef is down this way, ain't it, Jim?
Yeah, it's a big one.
The big one down here runs like this. It's like a 1/4 mile long. This reef here is out about 350 yards from shore. And it comes like this. Right here's, that tops out. This end of it tops out at 6 foot. This end at about 10 foot. You got 16 foot of water here. Here, you got 15. The rest of this is 15. This is 14. It's all rock on top. There's a big cousinette here. There's one, everybody know what a cousinette is? Those wild rice weeds they plant in Tawas Lake. That's what's out in the bay. The stalks are that big around in 20 feet of water. As they come up, it's like cousinette on the Adams Family with long hair. That shit just lays out all over. You get hooked up in it and you gotta back up or you lose your stuff. That's what all those straggly, skinny weeds are out here in the bay. That's that Ducks Unlimited Association. You can thank them for all that bullshit. But anyway, there's 2 cousinettes there. There's 1 cousinette here, and there's a couple stragglers out here. There's not that many on there. There's some cabbage weeds on top of that too. Most of it, you can walk it. It takes about 7 markers it's going to take to lay that whole thing out. If you're going to troll it, put your markers way out here in the deep water, so you know where everything is. If you put them on top, you're going to screw yourself, because the fish are up on top. You ain't going to be able to troll it. There's a rock bar comes out right here. Jimmy looked at that and told me about it. I didn't know where it was though, but I found it, because he seen it when the water was calm. Jim said there was rocks on there that big around, and he seen big smallies on it. We hit that spot, and that rod went doing one of those goddamn things and start pulling real hard and come off. And I told Marcy there's smallmouth. Had one come up and pop of water, and I thought, oh my God, they're up there. Then we had one of the bolting to come off. You had to hit that perfect to stay out of that cousinette. And every time you hit it, you'd have a fish on. I lost like 6, 7 fish right in a row, because you just couldn't hang on to them. The waves were 5 feet high and white capping, and we was getting wet. This end out here, all the northerns were out here. All you had to do was run 16 foot of water. It starts to come up to 15. Run that area with no 20-pound no-bow, about a color and a half with a 100. Or if you're using wire, use a 200. All the northerns we hit right there. All the smallies were right there. No smallies nowhere else. That one bar. And one thing I want to emphasize, Buck says the deepest water in the area is the home of the fish, and everybody knows that. But Buck also says in his book, when you don't have sanctuary depth in the water of 35 feet, that the contact point to any structure, the fish, when they're downstairs in their sanctuary or whatever they got, even if it's 16 feet, even if it's 10 feet, they're gonna be in that area of where their contact point is. They're not going to be over here. They're not going to be over here. They're not going to be over here. Like if you had a 50-foot hole, they could be anywhere in the hole. When they go dormant, they're going to be in the vicinity of the contact point. And when they become active, it may be for it's clear out there. It may be for a short time. But those bass were on that spot for nearly an hour. Because they was there and we got there and we played with them quite a while. And today's a bad day.
How deep is the deepest water there?
15 on that side, 16 on this side.
Where's that in relationship to your red buoy and marker you got up there?
For my red marker, you head from there right straight toward the house. It's got the red ceramic roof on it.
I'm having a terrible time with direction. Just kind of put your finger where you think the red marker is in relationship to that. Where would you say it is?
The first one you come to.
Yeah, the first one that you come to, that big one that you got DNR on.
Okay, here's my orange marker.
Yeah, but it's probably a half a mile.
It's so big out there, you're better off to go off to a shore thing because it's on that side, way over the side.
Here's the two big red markers that are out there from the state, and here's my orange marker.
Okay.
You would hit that spot from either one of them running toward that red tile roof. It's about 350 yards out from shore. It's a son of a bitch to troll, but if it was calm, you could figure it out real quick. When we're that crown on there, that 6 and 10 foot crown, it's only as wide as that picnic table.
So that shore is the south end?
I don't know directions out here anymore.
Where's the guard?
That's what's confusing. I think
Where's
that's
the guardhouse? Where's
You
the?
have to wait till it gets dark and look for the North Star.
Okay, here's
I think that's north.
here's the guardhouse.
Okay.
Here's Jerry's Marina building.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what way's what because it's point screws you up. Right, like okay, what way do you think north is from right here?
the bottom of the.
No, we're standing right here. Point your hand. Which way do you think north is?
I think it's up that way.
No.
Right
It's
that
that
way.
Well, I'm
way.
180. I'm 180 off.
No, north is that way.
John, if north is that way, why is the sun coming up over here?
I don't care. North is that way. We got 3 compasses and Vale's Cherokee. North is that way.
It's been a while
Sunrise
since
is
north
in
is
east.
that way.
Sunrise is in east.
Huh?
That's always said north is that way, and
That's it, is, ain't it? So the deepest water in the area,
Get
and
a map that's showing
when
on
you don't have sanctuary depths, those fish are gonna school up and go dormant right near the contact point. They don't go very far.
So can you get them to take on something when they're dormant?
Yeah,
What?
a nice slow jig dropping right on her nose. But these things out here, that wind picked up, and those waves were big, and those fish become active. I mean, they was going when we got out there, and bass shouldn't have, but they're smallmouths too. Smallmouths ain't like a largemouth. A largemouth gets turned off; they're turned off for days. But those smallies do some weird shit. But they were going good. But we couldn't anchor, we couldn't cast, we couldn't do nothing. But that area up there was.
What?
You went too far. If you're coming out
This is
and you
like
hit
north-
it comes up
north
to anywhere from 6 to 10 foot.
East as
You
opposed
found
to
it out
north
right
and
Right, now
west.
point out where's his reef is.
There's the little house.
Yeah,
So his little reef is up in here.
that 10 is almost.
That kind of looks like it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, this spot where that rock bar is comes up to 8 feet. And that rock bar goes out and it breaks at 12 foot. And on this corner it goes to 16. And there's a giant cousinet right there. But those smallies are all over that bar. That whole area, you're looking at, God, 10, 12,000 acres. And that whole area, that's the only spot they got that the smallies are actually going to use. Back in here, you got a slot. You got a slot that runs all the way around here. Those smallies will move over that slot, and that's hard, and there's a bunch of shit in there. But all this area in here, that's all there is.
Is there an opening there where the weeds don't come up, to the surface? It's pretty.
None of the weeds come to the surface there.
Oh, they don't.
No.
So you can get in over the top of them any place.
You can run a short 250 all the way across that bar anywhere you want to go.
Okay.
If the fish are on a bar, they're going to pick it up. But those fish were right at about 13 feet on those rocks today. and those northerns are out here, and those northerns, I gotta check that out good when it ain't windy like today, 'cause today those waves were like that. I mean, it was rough. Marcy, she didn't know whether she had a puke or shit, you know. It was pretty bad.
I'm glad we know about that.
And that,
Did you figure it out, Mark?
yeah.
That's more than we need to know.
And this, I had the markers where the weed line goes. Here's the water. Okay, right here is 16 foot. Right there's 16 foot. You had a lot of weeds, a lot of cousinettes. Right here is 18 foot. And right here is 16 foot on top of the secondary weed line. Yesterday morning, me and Mike Bussey hit all those pike right there. Going into that 16 and stacking your lures, because most of the fish were at about 12 foot. So that means if they were at 12 foot, they was in the weeds at 12 foot and they were coming out and hitting your lure. But that is the area they was at. Everybody done a little bit different. But that's where we done the best. Jim, he can explain to you what happened up here and the rest of it. I'm not a real good drawer or anything. My favorite year in school was art class, was my 4th year in the 3rd grade, so. Under the whoop-de-doos, but the trick is getting through the cousinettes and getting in them.
Yeah, you got that figured
That's
out.
it,
The whoop-de-doos and the cousinet.
Is that in the green book?
I wonder what I kept running into.
Whoop-de-doo.
What a better name. Remember cousinette came to our thing?
I remember cousinet.
It's whoop-de-doos I haven't figured out yet. What the hell's a whoop-de-doo?
You ever ride a motorcycle?
Yeah.
In front of this, there's a tower, like a big long, like it's a radio tower or something like that. The 2 longest weed points that reach out in the bay are in front of that tower. In front of there's a
Show us your shoreline
Coast Guard
sighting.
what?
Your shoreline sighting. Put it up there, goddammit.
What are you doing? That's
Where's that tower at?
there's a tower right here. Leave him alone. Am I doing all right?
Leave him alone, John. He's been drinking.
Yeah. Eater sizers. And I said, we're going to wait out here until these big females start moving out here, because I've caught some nice big female pike out here, you know, 10, 12, 14, 15 pound fish. They didn't go, and I said, well, Dave, let's go out here. There's a slot out here that comes, this is a big area. When the water was higher,
Everybody know where Jim's talking about?
Yeah, it's out there.
Where's that?
yeah,
Put the marker buoys down there.
right here, there's the one here, there's a whole bunch of weeds around this one. No, this is where you were at. This is the one here, it's got a whole lot of weeds around it. Then there's a slot here too that's real good. I found this slot earlier this year. I come out here, it's 16 feet. You can run this whole slot from that first red buoy out there. Run this slot, you can run all the way out to where it cleans out into the bay. It's hard, and you can't go either way in it too far. You start running the weeds. Caught a lot of pike in that, but yesterday I wanted to get a big fish, so we caught a couple dozen fish yesterday. You know, your average fish, 24, 26, 27 fish, inch fish. So there's a slot out here, but the slot kind of fooled me a little bit because the water's down. This slot here is on the edge of the weeds. When it's not like that, and the water's not down, you can find that slot a lot easier. And that slot is only about a foot or a foot and a half difference than the rest of the bay. in that slot, these big fish will move out of this slot, and it's a big long slot, and you got to watch your meter real close. It's a meter type thing, unless you won't try to bump bottom. I don't. I have to keep my lure above bottom because it's a weedy bay. And I've caught some really damn nice fish moving around the slot here with wire running about 19 foot, just about a foot or foot and a half off the bottom. Dave and I tried to find it yesterday, and the water's down, so that slot is actually against the weed line over here. On the other side of it, it didn't vary that much on that side because it slopes more on this side due to the weather and all that kind of pushing the sand up and stuff. And on that side, I never did much on this side of it. And then it just varies, and your depth varies very little out from there. Well, anyway, we're picking. There's a weed wall that you can just jump in and out. There's all kinds of rice trees that reach up along this area here. And Dave and I, we caught a bunch of fish there, and I said, "Well, Dave, we tried that. I wanted to hit this slot. I said, I'm looking for a big fish." And so I said, "They're not out there. They're not on the edge. Big fish and little fish they're not together. They don't school together, don't get together." So I said, "Well, I'm going to go inside and hit a pocket." I luckily hit a pocket that I could move around in. Very little into, but I dropped into that pocket and I picked up a 40-inch nice fish into them pockets. So I knew them big females were in them pockets inside. And these other fish are out here, the ones we like to catch, you go boom, 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 and catch. Nah, bullshit. I want something that's going to do some shit, and I did. Hooked in that damn thing. This guy really helped me out. We got that baby up there and got it in the boat. And it dove in two different weed beds up there, two different ones, and rocking that line and stuff, and got that damn thing up to the boat.
Okay, what I want to know is how many times did you comb when you got him in the boat?
He was drinking, John.
This system changes up here. Last year they had a real hard winter, but it used to be where you could cut way in. You cut way in, but the big pike the pike are on the inside bends. They won't be right on the end of the points. Your bass and walleyes will be at the hard spots on the inside. The pike will be on the hard spots on the inside, and the big hog pike, the good big pike, are always on the inside of the bend. You get a bend like this, it comes in like that. Those pike will be in here, and fish that right and do it right. You really need to jig it. You need to cast it. There's a lot of these inside bends are small, and they'll be in there. Your big pike. But I lucked out and picked that baby up. Then we stopped and we cast and jigged, and we found a hard spot. It was a good hard spot for them to lay in there. But it was one hard spot. I thought maybe we'd get to be 2 or 3 more fish we'd pick out of there, but that was it. Your bass, your walleyes, they'll stay out here, but the big ass pike will be in here. They can't hang around together because something's going to get something's ass out. And these big pike are back in here. When they're going, I've always did that with your bigger pike. They're going to be in an inside bend, inside turn, like that. They'll be in these inside turns.
You guys know what he's talking about?
Cast your inside bends, jig your inside bends for the big fish. On the outside, where you get them, you're going to have hard here, you're going to have hard there. Now Buck Perry explains about hitting these end points, put your markers, hit your end points, these markers. But on the inside bend, on the inside, the reason that inside is because there's something hard there. It would be all straight like that if it was hard. So you've got hard here, you got hard here, and certain parts where you work yourself in, you can have your fingers and that, there'll be hard spots in these fingers. It's like that at any lake, but this lake here is big and it's weird. It's got those them rice trees up in it. It might have helped the lake to hold them fish more than, like you said, with the Ducks Unlimited. To keep the fish up in here because it's 18, 19 feet of water. But that's the home of the fish is these rice trees in here.
Everybody understand what he's talking about on those slots in between the whoop-de-doo?
And when you troll this, when you run into that big wall of weeds like that big you want to cut right back in so you can get that inside bend. Cut in there until you hit again, another one of them. You cut back in, you long line it, you don't short line it because if you short line it, you're going to hit this one here. When you go back around with that longer line, you're going to catch that inside bend better, and you'll pick that damn big fish up.
How are you going to make that trolling pass? Cut in there without and keep your lure.
I got my motor and turn my bull right up in the air and cut right back in.
You're doubling back.
Yeah, I double back in like that. Because your lures, if you got like 2 colors out or a color and a half, your lure's back a ways. If you're using wire or spider wire, your lure's not that damn far back of your prop wash, back of your boat. It's really digging. It's going down. You know how that works with that spider wire or wire. So
really,
I just cut right back in real hard like that.
Let me stop you there.
I can make out of it.
You were talking about using Milbo, but in this case, if you're going to make those sharp turns, then you'd be better off to use wire or
No, because by the time
you make that sharp turn, you're going to catch this. You're going to catch this right here.
Okay.
Right?
And if you
I'm
use a
telling you, make
no-bow
them
when you
passes
turn
like
out,
that and the fish are going.
what
They catch a
happens,
lot.
your lure, when you start turning out, you got a long line. That lure is barely moving. It's settling, and then you pick up again.
Another
and
thing
then you're
about
out
it,
of
when
there.
you gun the
If
motor,
you use wire and you do that, the second you make that turn, that wire never drops. It's right on the move all the time. And it's right back out. And sometimes those pike are 0 speed, and it falls spoon plug, they'll pick it right up.
prop wash. When the fish are going, I'm going to drop my lure right in that prop wash at the end of the prop wash, and I pick up all kinds of fish. Right in the prop wash, like late and early in the day. They're right on the top of the cabbages. You just drop it in there and turn it in and out. Boom, boom, boom. What the hell, love it. But anyway, you turn in there like that. But by the time you straighten out and you gun your motor, I think that'll liven the fish up. You gun your motor, and you turn back in like that, your lure is stopped. Depends on if you're with somebody else. One guy's lure is stopped, the other guy's going real fast around there. You gun that motor, the motor noise and all that shit, it livens them fish up for a second. So I know that motor has a lot to do with
In there.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 19 foot out here.
Yeah.
If you can stay out of the calls and nets and you make your way up in there, what you're gonna find, and I don't know why, there's gonna be a spot in there that's 20, 21 foot deep.
It's hard.
And believe it or not, that little clean 20, 21 foot spot, those big fish
It's a hot
home,
spot.
you only got 25 foot out here. Buck says the home of the fish, when you got weeds going to 19, 20 foot and you only got
That is
25
the home.
foot, the home of the fish is in the weeds. And when these fish that are in here become active, they're going to become active into that open slot. And if you got a hole there that's a foot deeper than this, guess what? That's their home. That's a foot deeper, that's their home. Those fish ain't going to come up this way to 19 and go back to 25. These are fish that live in this bay. The ones that come in out of the big lake that migrate in are never going to know that hole's there. Because they're not going to come uphill and then go downhill.
That time we hit it with real stable weather, we caught 72 big fish out of the bay. We caught 72 really big fish. They were 92, but we had really stable weather. And those fish, I believe a lot of those fish that we caught were from out of the big lake.
Yeah.
They migrate out of the big lake. And they about 2 sweeps, even though it's 3 or 4 miles out there, they'll come in here.
Yeah, they'll come in
and
one
work. They'll
movement.
come in
It
with
ain't
that
nothing.
bay.
and they'll cross those long flats.
No, there's a break. You follow that bar going out all the way around the point. There's a break line at 14 to 16.
So they come in there and follow all the way around.
And the next break line out is from 20 to 22. So they can hit either one of them, and wherever they move it up to the shallower one at, and they'll come all the way in.
They'll come all the way around that far.
Yep.
Wow.
They can move all the way in. And if they got weeds up here to hold them, and this time of year they're moving in out of the big lake because they're going to winter in this bay because that's where they're going to spawn. And when they move into that bay, and they're going to hang in that bay, you got to get out there and you got to troll those brake lines, the major brakes, because that's what they're using to move on. And they can move in here to winter and feed and make their home or whatever, however they're going to do it. Because Buck emphasizes everything on a largemouth bass. He leaves all this other stuff wide open for us to figure out, because if he had to put everything in there that he knew, you'd have a damn encyclopedia set, you know, a set of study guides. And those northerns, they act different, you know. It's like I don't think anybody caught any largemouths today, did they? And other than those smallmouths today, they're not like a largemouth, you know. They don't get turned off like a largemouth does, but that's why Buck picked a largemouth, because it's the worst fish there is affected by cold front. And usually somebody will pick up a largemouth here and there, and nobody done nothing today. But
at any rate, no matter how deep the water is, there's that long flat, and they're never going to go across that flat.
They have no reason to. The only fish, even if salmon come in, they don't cross the flats. They'll follow the brake lines into the bay. Like all those fish you see jumping out there, those German browns, that bay is loaded with them.
So, do we have two different homes here? We have one home that's in the weeds. One sanctuary that's in the weeds. We have another one that's out in deep water, and then big fish may make a migration when conditions are right, come up along that point, and then come all the way down.
Yeah. If you get 5 days after a cold front, those fish are gonna move all the way up around that point, and they're gonna come into this bay. They'll follow that brake line in. It might take them a while to move in. It might take them, you have a real bad front go through, those same fish are going to move back out. All they're doing is moving shallower. That's all they got to move up in is this big bar out here. But then it might take them a couple days to move out, or 3 days. But in the process, they're going to hang in the weeds on their way out because they've got cover, and that's their sanctuary. They just can't take off and say, well, I'm going to go 1.5 miles and move all the way back out to deep water instantly, because they don't do that. They don't work that way.
So you guys know I've been going through hell, right? Anyways, we come to this slot right here, and you got, this is all that sand shit here, about 5 foot deep. And as I told Gerald, we got in here and started trolling this. And rather than look at that meter, all you gotta do is just like Terry O'Malley says, use your eyes. Not just stay in, you can see the sand there, you can see the short weed line there. Just stay like from here to John's truck away, about 12 feet, wasn't we, Gerald? Gerald was about, what, 1 rat behind the boat when we got that fish? Was it yesterday?
One and a half colors.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
We just traveling along there like that, and I told Gerald, I said, the big thing is use your eyes. Didn't even use the meter. I just looked at that sand, just driving around there.
Yeah.
Keep your nose out of that meter.
Yeah.
Hey, it's important at one time, and other times it's not.
Next to that.
Just like today, Jim had his marker over here, and I threw one here, where he's talking about the inside deals. And there's a big house over here, and it's got like 2 chimney stacks on it. Then over here on land over here, there's some trees here, some high trees, and there's just like a mound of land here. Wasn't it, Gerald?
Yeah,
Gerald pointed this out to me, and I found that. You can line this up with that, and you can go right by these markers here, just like that.
And it's hard
Hit
spot.
that without even looking at your meter.
And we found a hard spot out there in that morning.
Yep. Right off from this, we found a hard spot right there. All I had to do was look at that house and look at this, as windy as it was and all that shit, that wind blew them markers off.
Yeah.
All I had to do was just look at that. Once I had that, you didn't even need them markers. Didn't matter where they was at, because these ain't gonna move.
I'd rather look stupid in front of everybody than not learn something. and I don't understand. I'm looking at that picture up there, and that. Are you telling me that that's a Tawas Point that's coming out here?
This is the point down here. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what this slot here.
Yeah, and John pointed out that slot, and you've pointed out that slot.
It goes all the way around, though, all the way up past the marina, halfway around the
Okay. And they're like on the map. They're showing like 1-2 foot of water up in there.
Hey, when that sun's all right, you can see that sand, and you can see that first weed line.
So how many yards is that from the shoreline?
Oh, this here?
Yeah.
100.
Half a mile.
Is it that far?
Yeah, and that bar's only 2
Wait,
feet.
wait,
The
wait.
bar's only
You
a foot deep.
You drew an
also.
arrow. You drew an arrow right here.
This is shore.
This. Yeah, all the way along here. But you said this slot's on the left side of the point, right?
On the left side. No, it'd be on the right side.
If you were standing here, it's on the right side.
See, like here's Jerry's Marine.
Well, yeah, it's on the right side like this. But I mean, okay, this is the shoreline of
You can see the sand.
Tawas Point.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This is sandy.
Okay, what kind of distance we got between the shore?
Between
It's
the
kinda half a
sand?
mile shore.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they show this damn thing that comes
Right
way
here.
the hell out.
See this right here?
Yeah.
It's showing only 5 foot.
I guess it goes like this. Point. John's DNR buoy is there. You know, I just tried to stay in the 16 to 18 foot weed line going in and out. Yesterday I did fairly well picking up 2 fish. Well, John and I picked up 6, and I picked up 2 by myself later, and I was happy with that. Today I went with Mike's buoy was right here where he picked his fish up today, and I followed that weed line. I didn't catch any fish at all today. I got 1 real good hit, and I got 2 taps was it. But coming along this weed line, following it in and out, I got a real good hit right in here, but that's the only one I got. But I just basically tried to follow the markers that were out there. I'm still learning how to troll weeds. I'm doing better each time, but that's about it. Is all I did today.
Mike's from Virginia. They don't have many weeds down there.
No, more forgiving.
But in a way, we're cursed with weeds, but in another way, we're blessed with them, because if you got weeds hold fish. Those fish don't drop all the way back instantly. If you don't have weeds, they'll drop all the way back to the next break line, the next one, and they're home. If you got weeds, and it's not a massive front, those fish will hold in those weeds. And up here, those weeds is their home. And to get the tick weeds up here, there's no such sense as moving in and ticking a weed line, because you can't tick causing nets. They're just like, it's just like ticking a long-haired blonde woman, you know. It just grabs all over everything, and you can't get away from it.
I have a question as far as, okay, you've got your 5 foot water here. You've got your 5 foot to 1 foot water here, and you guys are talking about this long slot that goes around here. And Mike says you don't need to use your marker, that's fine, or you don't need to use your depth finder. Where are your markers in relation to this slot? Were your markers right out here?
Yep. They're like this. Here's a big buoy. Here's 1 marker. There's 2 markers. There's 3 markers.
So
Well-
did, okay,
All those markers we're on they're on fingers, and the fingers are all covered with cousinet weeds. And on the outside of them, it's where, remember when we hit them yesterday, those weeds trickled from 18 to 16.
yeah, and that's what I was trying to follow the last 2 days.
But it's very, very hard to do, because those cousinets pop up in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
But if you find that slot, you could run a 100 down through there easily.
not easily. There's still causing this in
Oh.
the slot, but there ain't as many
can
in the
see 'em.
slot.
Look like. They're just like big mushrooms. What John and I did last year, and I got to give most of the credit to John because he's the one that thought of this. He said we're not getting anything out in here, away from this weed line that runs 18, 19 feet out here. Beyond that, it's pretty clean. You control that pretty good. But also, there's nothing there to hold a fish.
Mm-hmm.
What we were doing is, when we were able to see these cousinet weeds, you'd see the crowns of them, and basically what we were doing is just shutting off the motor and drifting through here, and then we'd just make casts in between these. Let a jump type lure drop down, and we used all different kinds of jump type lures, and basically those northern were setting underneath these. Just you can imagine a
There you
tree
go.
out here.
Right
You're just,
underneath the
yeah, they were
at
sitting
the,
down
at
underneath.
the trunk of the tree.
Right, and the closer you could get to these, the more hits you had. It was we had a ball doing it. The only problem is we lost a lot of lures doing it because if you were using a tube jig or something like that, you felt a tick and you had slack line. I know John lost several on several casts. Silver buddies, any type of jump type lure seemed to work. But you know that Keith and I tried that today, and it was so choppy out there you couldn't see the tops of these. The sun was rather low too, and we had trouble seeing those. So basically, what we were doing is just looking on the depth meter, and it would just light up, and then when it would go away, we'd cast. It was what it amounted to. It's almost like vertical jigging. In fact, you can vertical jig. Once your boat floats over the top of that, you can drop right down to it in vertical jig.
No. These things tend to be all over, but like 19 feet in is where they really start to show up. Now, what depth of water were you at?
When we were doing this?
Yeah.
Actually, it really didn't make a lot of difference. What we did was we went right up next to this bar and just floated across. That was a prevailing wind at that time. So we started out maybe in 14, 15 feet of water, and then gradually worked our way across. As you'd work across,
they were scattered all over those.
Yeah, they were just scattered all over, and actually we went across this bay a couple times. By doing that, you work these hoop-de-doos, or delta ridges, whatever you want to call them. That's basically what these would be akin to if you're trying to refer something from the Green Book. Those would be just like big delta ridges. Same
So
type of thing.
you're just fishing in between all the trees.
Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. And like I say, John said, they're not out here. They got to be here. We knew that they had to be inside those weeds. There's really no way to troll in there. What?
John or other John?
The other John.
All right.
John Bales.
All right. Yeah, I'm John. That's other John.
Seagull. It's got a tannic stain to it, and the farther you get away from that, the worse it becomes. Thunder Bay, a couple of interesting things, and I'll say something that Lance touched on, but I don't think he really realized what he had found. And then there's a big island way out here. The distance from here to here is probably 5 miles or so. It's a big expanse. This is a huge bay. It's bigger than this. It's outstanding. But Lance, there's some industry up in here, factories and so forth. And Lance said he fished up in here and found a big, huge weed bed with all kinds of cousinets all over it. So anybody who gets it itching for some virgin pike that don't have any spoon plugs in their heads, it's probably a good spot to go for them. We didn't get over that way. Jim and I caught our salmon right here in the river mouth, and pretty much simple stuff. The river channel bottomed out at around 20 feet. We were running a brake line pass at
Did
about
it have
18.
good color all the way up the river channel?
Tea colored, like that tannic stuff.
It didn't used to be. It used to be brown.
I know it. It's not like that now.
Is there a dredge channel out from the river mouth?
Yes, yeah. And we worked that a little bit, but it's kind of soft. So John Bales got out ahead of us, and he kind of worked part of it, and we kind of let him go. So, but yeah, and it's a big long, straight affair with, you know, your typical channel markers, green on the left side and red on the right side. Or red on the, these are red. Red right returning, green right going. But we got out to about the first marker, and we decided that wasn't going to work for us because Bale was there checking out. So we decided we just kind of, we saw on the map that there were some humps out here somewhere, and it's so huge we just decided to take off and go. And we got about halfway across this flat. Most of it's about, we were in about 17 feet of water, and the flasher comes up to 12, bang. And we're on the middle of a big rock pile, and it wasn't very big, maybe a couple acres in size. We didn't catch any fish off it, but it was a structure situation that we found out in the middle of nowhere. And there was a 17 flat for the most part. And if I take this rock pile and put it over here, well, let me do this first. I'm gonna give you my shore sightings to the rock pile. It's gonna be, there's a, right here in this corner of where the river dumps out, there's a light, and it's got a stack. It looks like kind of a candy cane with a green band right here. And your shore sighting to that hump, like this, is there's a little factory here, and it's got a conveyor belt coming down. And to the left of that, there's two small stacks. And if you line up those stacks with this thing and just go right straight out from that, you're going to hit that hump. And that's probably one of the best spots we've seen because it's got good watercolor. All the rest of the humps that are on the map are way out here, like a couple miles, where most likely your watercolor is going to be horrible. We could just barely see the rocks on top of this hump. And let's see, north is this way. The hump looked kind of something like this. It had kind of did this general shape here, and there was a slot that come in like this, and this is the shore side. The deepest spot was right out here, 23 feet, but it kind of petered out and up in here, and it's all rock. Top of the hump was 8 feet. You could just barely see it. Watercolor not great, but not, you know, could have been worse. And it seemed like off of this little corner here, kind of went down to 20, and then there was a little rock pile right there. But we didn't catch any fish off it, but this was the only structure for probably a mile on either side. And so I would, I don't know for sure, but I would have to assume that there are probably fish there. We did cast it. There was just nothing going on when we got there. And I think if it was me, I would definitely, if I was going to go back, I'd definitely spend some time there because it's got access to the deepest water that we actually found in the bay. And we covered a lot of water, and 23 feet off of this side toward shore, I don't understand why it was there. It's not a tailing, it's not a dumping ground, it's a rock pile, and it's just popped up out of nowhere, and we got lucky. And
Oh, we didn't cast it.
we did cast it. We trolled all over the top, trolled the sides, kind of made an assessment as to where the best casting position would be. Cast a couple different type of jump lures, checking our speeds at two different jump speeds, and I think Jim caught a goby. So
is there any current out that far?
No, none. No. There was a lot of current in the form of about 2-foot waves. Outside of that, not much. After actually, the major influence of the river is probably largely determined by the wind conditions at any given moment. But I would say that you could see a color break line within about probably 150 yards out from the mouth, and then things really started to clear up after that. But it looks good. John Bale said some guys were up there fishing in a bass tournament and got a couple 6-pounders on consecutive days. So there are fish there. We fished in the river a little bit, did some casting. The salmon, you could see them. They were, I mean, their screen lit up. Of course, it's like it's real frustrating to go in there and see all these fish. They're jumping out of the water and looking at you and sticking their tongue out and everything. You can't get them to go. It's tough. Probably could. I could.
If you're in shallow water, 12 foot or less, and you want to catch salmon, put a 400 spoon plug on with about, I don't know, 5 to 8 colors with a 400 spoon plug. If you're in shallow water, and you'll catch salmon. Salmon will pick that thing right up. Just get out there and zigzag these mouths.
Why such a long line?
Huh?
Why such a long line?
Because salmon, when you go over with a boat in shallow water, have a tendency to shoot off to the side about 20 or 30 foot. Even when we used to spear them, when you got up on top of them, they'd shoot right out of the way. But if you run a real long line with a little 400, and that 400 is going to be running probably about 7, 8 foot deep, and you move your boat in and out, your boat will never go over where the salmon is, and the lure will be there. And they'll pick up those 400s, and don't ask me why.
Do you ever think about, salmon swim with their mouths open a lot of times up. And if you have a long line out, a lot of times that line will snag on their mouths, and eventually that lure will run right up to their mouths. You can have...
No, because they're hooked on the inside.
On the inside of their mouth?
Yeah, they'll hit.
So they're actually hitting the lure?
You go out here in the bay, and you want to see those German browns jumping all day? They're about that big. You want to catch them, you put a 400 on a real long ass line, and go out there, check your speed, and keep zigzagging, and you'll pick up those German browns. You go down to the mouth of Tawas River, they got that bottom goes like that, out from the river mouth. 250s, 400s, long lines, just start zigzagging it, and you'll pick them off.
Okay.
But if you think you can run a short line in that shallow water on salmon, you won't do it. The second that boat goes over them, don't ask me why. It just spooks them. But if you got a long line, it don't.
Thank you.
What color they have in it?
Not very good. Kind of tea.
I wonder why all that changed.
It wasn't very good. It had weeds down about 10, 11 feet.
Oh shit, that thing had 2 foot of weeds in it.
No, it was bad. But it was a lot better than Thunder Bay was. At the dam, most of the structure, I'm just going to make it like this. Most of the structure at the dam was...
I just plugged it up all over the ready.
Was pretty straight. But once you got down so far, it started doing this. It got real pretty. Just like this the rest of the way. All the way down. It was a bitch.
Did you do some straight line or a little zigzag?
I did a little bit of both. Mostly zigzagging. Here was the problem. Here's the surface of the water. The weeds came right to the top, and the break broke right to the base break line almost. It was solid weeds. Buddy, you talk about hard to stay in. You know what I mean? It was very hard to control. We found that the weeds went to about 10 or 11 feet. If we went out to the next break was about 15 or 16, we could do pretty good. You know what I mean? You can make up for a mistake and not get in the weeds. These weeds here were so tough, when you got them wrapped around your prop, it was like rope. I mean, you couldn't back up, and you had to lift your prop up and take them off. And I mean, as soon as you made a mistake, you know, what I do, a lot of times I'll get, just like anybody else, I'll get in a hurry. And I want to see what's there quick, and I'll put a lure in the water. And you're going to make a few mistakes, but once you find out what's there, this is the flow of the channel. And your best spots were where the channel makes a bend, and you had nice break lines here to about right here, and then this backside would be flat. Sound familiar, Chase?
Yep.
This stuff would be mostly steep and deep. And then again, where your channel hits up against here, from about here to here, you have pretty good break lines, and then this would be flat on this side. And then you had pretty good stuff from here to here on this side. And then it'd be flat here. And again, you'd have steep and deep there, and nice break lines all along here to here. But the best spot we had kind of went like this. It was kind of like this, only when it went around like this, it made a bigger flat, and there was a little 14-foot slot that went just like that. And we got a double, 2 3-pounders. I netted Debbie's first in one of them, and got mine. We had 2 3-pounders, but we couldn't get them going again.
Largemouth?
Smallmouth.
You know, those smallmouth don't react, those fronts don't hurt them like they do a largemouth.
I don't think so. But I'll tell you, this thing here had a ton of fish in it. After you get up here a ways, this kind of peters out. It looked like it just cut off like that. And we went a little ways, and it was weeds, and pretty soon it picked up again.
It's like
Yeah, very similar to alligator. But you'll find little pockets up in here, I'm sure. But the best fishing, I thought, was the easiest fishing was right here for the guys that don't like making all the turns. But the best fishing was in the areas of the bends. Whoops. But it seemed like a neat little lake. But it was didn't have good water color, but luckily it had a few fish. I think we caught like 6 smallmouth, 1 largemouth, and 2 pike and a walleye.
Any good pike?
No. Little ones. Well, we got wiped out on Thunder Bay today. I caught 1 sheephead. That's it.
We caught a bunch of fish. All I had to do was hold the pole, and he said, okay, let out this much line, put on this lure, this color, and I caught fish.
All right.
Did he rod whip you?
Didn't rod whip me.
Did he give you a haul like I give you a
Didn't
haul?
cuss me out. I mean, it was a pretty pleasant experience, really.
Jesus Christ.
That ain't spoon plugging.
He didn't scream at you to get the net, throw your rod in the water, or nothing?
Didn't have to do any of that shit.
My God.
I did, it started with a weed line and worked out and wasn't catching anything. 250, 200, and there was a little point on the side opposite the boat ramps, and I mean it isn't much of anything at all that came out. Probably 40, 50 yards from, probably 30, 40 yards from shore.
Right straight across.
Pretty much straight across. I mean, it was just sort of like this, and
Is there a great big round rubber like swim raft set up by shore on the side of it?
I think the swim raft was down here. Was that the same? And it was close. And there's a 22-foot hole right here. And I worked all this, worked in cat. I worked it all down first. Then I drug a 700 through the hole, and just as it started to come up from 22 to 20, right in here, it had a northern hit. I mean, it was just real slow, just sort of just idle, really idle through there. Caught a northern there. He was probably 26, 28, and went back to cast, nothing else. But I mean, he was just laying right in the bottom of that hole.
Did Carol net it?
Carol net it, and it did a back flip out of the net.
Now, did you tell her to throw a rod in the water and all that stuff?
No, I don't give her any advice on that.
Because it's your equipment.
Hey, did everybody have the same speed today for catching fish? Real slow?
It's pretty slow.
No, I got mine almost on plane.
Did
I
you?
think you bought that one of yours.
I was thinking about, instead of making them flat, make them like a pyramid shape, so they hold more. Making them figure out what about 1.5 pounds is, and just put, make it so they just come out upside down. And put
Anybody else?
Where did they come from? You'll all be specks. They're going to just mash you in real good. Get in there something.
Oh boy.
Got more room down
I manipulate each other now.
Get in there, Jimmy.
You gotta get down.
No, thank you.
You just fried them up.
No, I can smell it. We can smell it down
You're
there.
welcome.
Maybe later tonight we'll wander down. Yeah.
If I count, let's see. 1, 2.
Did you hear
Maybe.
Good.
You got your,
Thanks. Have a good time, you guys.
It's a rainbow in the sky.
Hi. Hey. Hey.
It's gonna be good. I got up out of my chair to see this.
over Van Lake.
Oh yeah.
Gerald really caught both of them because I fell asleep and I caught the pike, and then he went in cast position and caught the smallmouth because I was tired and I went to sleep.
Went to sleep.
If the fish aren't moving good, sometimes you have to go to sleep.
Go to sleep and catch them. That's a good thing to remember. Is that in the green book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bad conditions like you got today. Nobody got in no school or no good movements today at all. So those fish were dead. They were biting a rut. But days like today, Buck talks about, you find a bar or anything, the first thing Buck says, you troll your shallows, 500s, 400s, 250s. 250s a break, shallow or deep. You drop a marker, you found a bar, you drop a marker at that, 8 to 10 foot. When you start your straight line passes and you're mapping this, even though you don't catch any fish, and you know it's going somewhere and you find something, there's one spot to remember, and that's right there, the contact point. And the only way you're going to find that, you run a 200, you're coming across this way, you're going back, you're going up the sides, and a flasher's an aid. You can watch your flasher, and you figure, well, there ain't too much there. You go down to 100, you're coming down to 15 feet, you don't see a whole lot there. You come down to 700, you make your pass this way, you turn around and you watch. All of a sudden that sucker pops from 30 to 20 foot right now instantly. When you make your other pass, 20, bang, 30. The only spot you found on that whole bar, and that sucker dropped 10 foot. That's your contact point. You drop a marker inside that spot, throw it out the rest of the way, cast it all the way back. Remember that exact spot. Get sightings over here, sightings there, 90 degrees apart. Because when those fish do move out of that hole, you're going to catch fish on that spot. That's a contact point. You find that, and you just put that whole structure right in your pocket. You know right where you got to go fish. But you got to write this stuff down. Everybody, people know, I don't remember nothing no more. I forget all my stuff, all my sightings. I write it down on a piece of paper, and it gets lost. But when you find that spot, you know how hard it is to find? On another day, you go hit a different strange lake, and you forget that spot, how hard it is to find it again. And you know it's there. You're going to waste an hour or 2 hours just finding that spot. And it's so much easier to write it down. And the next time you go back to that lake, you get 3 days after a front. You know damn well, if you don't hit nothing trolling, you drop anchor there, and you wait for those fish, because you know they're going to move up there, and when you get them, that's the best feeling in the world. Because you done put that in your pocket, you know they're going to move up at. But when you're trolling a bar, Buck says you're looking for the fastest, sharpest break that goes all the way, the narrowest one, whether it be a skinny finger or something. It's got to relate all the way to the deepest water in the area. And that's all you're looking for on a bar. It might even be a rock pile laying where it's all a flat bar. You might have a rock pile or a brush pile, and then all of a sudden your contact points below that, but the brush pile will bring them up so they can use it. They can go all the way. It's no longer flat. But you have to find that spot. All the fish caught were stragglers. There weren't no big fish caught. There wasn't no movement. And it's just one of those days you just do your homework on, you know.
Would you say it's a day one?
I don't know what today was. Everybody thought it was a day 4, but something went through yesterday because they kicked their butts.
There was no day 4.
Huh?
There was no day 4.
No, but that's what everybody was saying this morning, or Jeff was saying too.
We had 3 days of low pressure with not much cloud cover, and I don't know if the fish had enough time to recuperate before this cloud cover came in from the last one.
Wishful thinking.
Anybody got any questions on finding a contact point?
Just look for your boom.
Yeah. But when you drop a marker on the end of a bar, or if you got a hump out here, and you're following that hump around, and it's kind of flat, and all of a sudden it does one of these numbers, and then it does one of these numbers, and you got 18 foot of water. That's all the deeper water out here, and you come off that hump, and that thing goes from a 10 foot to 16 foot, just bang right now. You found a contact point to that hump. But if it's a big hump and you got 4 or 5 days after a cold front, the fish are going to be up on top of that hump, or they could hit a break line and be anywhere on that break line around that hump. They don't have to be right there. But when those fish do move up, they're going to move up on that spot. And that's the main thing you're looking for, is a change, a rapid change in depth. And they don't have to be a whole lot.
I just look for your bird.
He said something to that effect.
You shouldn't rely on luck.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Should not rely.
No, you make your own luck happen.
Now it's okay.
I've been out with O'Malley and Rocky, and they'll take a little structure and they'll run around it fairly fast, and then glance back at their weight and figure out the shape of a structure that way.
Yeah, you can
and
find
you'll get a line sight. I never see anybody get line sighting off O'Malley. He can figure right back around and hit that outside part of his weight. You know?
Yeah, but what can happen? You come around a bar and you gotta start cutting in. The second you start to where you have to cut in, look up anywhere for a shoreline sighting when that starts cutting in. Once you cut in, drop a marker on it, and you can still see where your bubbles are from your motor going around it. But drop that marker right at 10 foot.
Well, they did it without pulling a lure, just going around it. Another thing Rocky did, when he had a point of land or something, he'd come in it from different angles to find out which way that bar was running, because sometimes they don't run like you think they're going to. And he'd find out which way that thing was running by coming straight in out of deep water to it from about 3 or 4 different directions.
But if you want to map it before you put a lure in the water, you know, that's fine. But when Buck talks about making straight line passes, you know the bar is there. If you start your straight line passing with your 200s on down, you're going to find every little detail out from that bar and the deep water.
Oh, that's what they did. But when they first started, to find the shape of what they had there, to figure out where they, about how they were going to go. That's what Rocky did anyway.
Yeah, just map it before you put a lure in the water.
Right. Yeah, he quickly though, he ran in. He found out which way that, because on the particular structure we were on, the bar didn't run the way the point was coming out. It came out and made a turn underwater.
Yeah.
And,
I ain't never seen any two of them ever alike.
Right, and then we went to 500, 400s, and 250s after that.
But see, what you should do though, when you find that bar, the number one thing you want to do before anything, if you know you got deep water out there, even if it's a big flat, it's the deepest water in the area, and you got a bar coming out, you drop a marker at 10 foot on the end of the bar. And then, you know where your deep water is, but you still got to run your 500s, your 400s, your 250s. You still got to troll the whole thing because you don't have any idea where the fish are at.
Right.
So if you're just out there fishing, you got somebody in the boat with you, go ahead and troll it, drop a marker on it, and see where it goes. If it don't go anywhere, pick your marker up and go hit the next one, I just like having a lure in the water.
What do you do when you can't get a good line sighting? How do you handle that?
Usually a lot of swear, a lot of cussing.
Well, a lot of times you can't get a good line sighting.
No, you can't.
Markers will take care of that.
Yeah, put a marker in the water and then find something behind the marker. But sometimes all you got is a tree line.
That's where you got to use markers. You just lay your markers out just inside of what you got to interpret it first. You got to interpret the spot first, and then after you interpret it, then you throw your markers in relationship to where you want to make your trolling passes, just inside of where you want to make your passes. That take care of anything.
Interpret it by you first get the general shape. You get the general shape, and then throw your marker out on the tip of the bar, or if you find any fingers or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
There's a couple ways you can get the general shape of it. You can do it with or without a lure in the water. If you got a tall weed line,
John, get up here and draw it. Everybody can't fly like you do because you're a seagull. You can see that shit.